Good morning, students. Hope you all are fine. Today I'll start with a new lesson, A Letter to God, which has been written by G.L. Fuentes. The story A Letter to God actually revolves around the central theme of having unquestionable belief in something. So there's a farmer whose name is Lencho, and he's the protagonist of the story. Protagonist means the main character. He is suffering. He has certain issues in his life, which we'll be discussing in the chapter. And in context of those problems, he writes a letter to God because he wants help from the Almighty. Actually, the entire crop of the farmer had been destroyed because of a devastating hailstorm. And he writes a letter to God to help him so that he can try to be happy in the tough times. He needs actually some money. Okay, so although his wishes they get fulfilled partially, but he is ungrateful in the end, and he questions the honesty and the loyalty of the postmasters, because he had written a letter to God, and of course the letter could not reach God. So the letter was in the post office. So the postmasters, they felt that the man is actually troubled, and they thought of helping him. The postmaster was a real good gentleman. He helped him, but of course they had to help him by contributing money from their salary, so they could not fulfill what he had asked for. But he was such an ungrateful fellow that he felt that the postmaster is a man who has stolen the money. He has kept some money for himself, and that is how the story ends. Okay, so I'll start with the chapter as such. I'll not read the entire lines because that does not make any sense. I'll just explain you the chapter paragraph wise. Okay, so the story starts that Lencho the farmer lived on the only house that was there at the top of the hill. The hill was low heighted, and from there a river and a ready to harvest corn field were visible. The field belonged to Lencho, and he had the extreme confidence that the harvest this year would give him great profits. The only thing that he was waiting for was rainfall. And in this hope, he spent an entire morning looking towards the sky in the northeast direction, from where a drizzle was expected to shower on his field. So this is how the chapter starts. And the man, that is Lencho, while he was looking towards the sky, he was confidently telling his wife that this year they are going to have a rain shower. To which the wife replies that we must hope that what we are expecting, the same should happen. So their elder children were working at the field, and the younger ones were playing near the house. When Lencho's wife, she calls everyone for dinner, and it is during that time that drops of rain, they began to fall. So of course the prediction of the farmer that it would rain, the prediction of Lencho that it would rain, came to be true. The wind was pleasant, and the clouds could be seen approaching from the northeast sky. Lencho goes out of the house to because he wanted to take pleasure in feeling the droplets. Of course, he was waiting for rain, and after so much of wait, when we experience something that we had hoped for, we feel happy. So he refers to the drizzle, that is jo boond gir rahi thi barish ki, he refers them as coins. And the large droplets, they were equal to 10 cents. Cents is a currency, and the smaller ones were equal to 5 cents. Now, why is he equating these droplets to cents or currency? Because of course the rainfall will give him good harvest. He will sell that produce, and he will get money in exchange. So that's the reason for him. This rainfall was equivalent to the money that he was going to gain. He says so. Why? Because these raindrops would ensure that he would get a good crop, and of course in exchange of that he would get a good money. With a satisfied expression, he regarded the field of ripe corn with its flowers draped in a curtain of rain. But suddenly things went wrong. A strong wind began to blow, and along with the rain, very large hailstones began to fall. Now this truly of course resembled silver coins, but this was going to be disastrous for him. Now the boys, that is the children who were exposing themselves to rain, they ran out to collect the frozen pearls. So whenever there is hailstone, it is basically a habit of children that they start collecting those, जिन्हें हम ओले बोलते हैं English हिंदी में. Okay. Now he was very happy, but suddenly thing went wrong. The farmer, that is Lencho, now started worrying, and he hoped that the storm would get over quickly. But he was disappointed. The storm did not pass over quickly. The hailstone covered the entire valley, including the house, garden, hillside, and the cornfield. It made everything look so white that it seemed as it was covered in salt. Not a leaf remained on the trees. The corn was totally destroyed. The flowers were gone from the plants. Lencho's soul was filled with sadness. And when the storm had passed, or when the storm had stopped, he kept standing in the middle of the field and said to his son, A plague of locust would have left more than this. Locust टिड्डी को बोलते हैं. अभी अगर आपने न्यूज़ में सुना होगा टिड्डी का अटैक हुआ था. टिड्डी एक ऐसा पेस्ट है जो पूरा क्रॉप खा जाता है. तो उसने वही बोला कि अगर वो भी आ जाते तो इतना नुकसान नहीं पहुंचाते जितना नुकसान मुझे इस हेल स्टॉर्म की वजह से पहुंचा है. The hail has left nothing. This year we will have no corn. So that night was a very sorrowful one for him because all his expectation went down the drain. All our work for nothing. There's no one who can help us. So of course they were going to get hungry this year because all his hard work had gone in vain. He felt helpless as no corn had been left, and he feared that this year they might have to starve. Now let's move to the next part. There are certain questions, if you can see over here. Now this is your part. You need to answer these questions. Maybe it is written oral comprehension check, but if you practice it in written, it will be better for you because that will strengthen your writing skills. You people are not good at that. Anyways, I'll move ahead with the lesson. Even after everything had gone southwards, the family still had hope in their heart. They had faith in the Almighty, that is God, even after nothing was left. They gave each other support, and they recalled a saying which assures that no one ever dies of starvation. कोई भी hunger से नहीं मरता है. God है, वो उन्हें ज़रूर help करेगा. So the whole night Lencho thought only of his one hope, the help of God, whose eyes, it was visible to him. He could see God, and he had a strong belief that God will help him. So he had worked like animals in the field, but he could not get anything. So the following Sunday, he thought that I will write a letter to God, and he would himself carry that letter, and he would himself mail it or post it to God. So it is what is a letter to God. That is what is written over here, that the following Sunday at daybreak, he began to write a letter, which was nothing less than a letter to God. Okay, so he was so disappointed that he thought that I would myself speak to God now. There's nothing else that I can do. So this is what he could conclude from everything that had happened with him. So what did he write? He thought of writing a letter, and he wrote that if you don't help me, my family and I'll go hungry this year. So he's communicating his situation. He's in extreme penury. He's going through an impecunious state, and he's poverty stricken. So he's mentioning in the letter that you need to understand that my family, everyone will starve if you don't help us. Okay, so what he needs is, he needs 100 pesos, again a currency, to regenerate the crops along with surviving until they are ready to harvest. And on the envelope he wrote to God, because God has no address, of course. Then at the post office, he went there, he placed a stamp on the letter, and he dropped it in the mailbox. Now one of the employees, who was a postman of the post office, he noticed Lencho's letter and he showed it to the postmaster. And they both felt amused. They were surprised to see that this kind of letter could be written to God. Okay, they both felt amused, but the postmaster, who was fat and friendly, a very amiable person, he immediately developed a sense of seriousness. And he was surprised, he was taken aback at the amount of faith that Lencho has in his God, and he wished that he had the same faith. So with good intentions, the postmaster read the letter and thought of replying to it, so as to keep the writer's belief intact in God. But the writer expected the reply in a different way. That could not be fulfilled with pen and paper. That is, Lencho did not want a written reply to his letter. He was actually looking for 100 pesos. So even if the postmaster had written a wonderful letter in exchange of the letter that he had addressed to God, that would have not satisfied him. He demanded for 100 pesos. So now the postmaster, who is a very humble, a very polite and a very generous man, he, along with his colleagues and a few friends who were not so willing to donate, but they came together for a good cause, they collected a pool of money to help Lencho. So this is what is, they are very generous. ऐसे लोगों को हम बोलते हैं magnanimous. Okay, so of course it was impossible for him to gather to give singularly 100 pesos. So he somehow convinced everyone that we all will give a part of our salary and we can give some amount to him. So despite all his best efforts, the postmaster was only able to collect an amount not more than half of what was required, that is somewhere around 50 pesos. And then he addressed that envelope, he put that money in the envelope and he addressed it to Lencho along with a letter which was undersigned by God. Okay, so this is all what happened. This shows that still humanity is alive. There are people who would help you and they'll go all out of the way to help you. Next Sunday, Lencho came looking for the reply a bit earlier than expected. So he was expecting that of course God would have helped me. And the postman handed him the letter because he wanted to see him joyful and surprised. He wanted to see that expression of joy on his face, how jubilant and how ecstatic he would have felt after seeing the letter. So he was waiting for that expression. The moment he opened the letter, the farmer got disheartened on seeing that the money was less than what he asked for. Of course, the money was not sent by God. The money was a collection by the employees of the post office. So his faith remained intact and he believed that no, God cannot make such a mistake. So now he was disappointed. So he started looking for ink and paper to write to God again. And while writing, his eyebrows got curled out of the concentration with which he was drafting a new request. And on completing, he again stamped the letter. And as soon as he dropped it into the mailbox, they were all excited that what had he written again. So the postmaster took out the letter and he read it. Lencho now complained that he had only received 70 pesos and he thinks that 30 pesos have been taken out by the employees of the post office. So whom was he doubting? He was doubting the integrity and honesty of the post office who had actually helped him. So this was very disappointing. So this is how the lesson ends, and if you see at last he sends that employees are a bunch of crooks. So the people who actually helped him, at last they were called as crooks, matlab chor, criminal. So this is what is the story all about, that in today's world we can be good, but we should not expect that people will appreciate us or they will understand our sympathy or empathy towards them. But that does not mean that we should not be human. God is there. God सब देखता है कि आप क्या कर रहे हैं. Anyways, we are done with the lesson. Now your part is, there are number of questions and you need to answer all this. You need to see the difficult words and you need to understand the meaning. It will be fruitful if you are able to write a summary of the chapter on your own. Thank you students. I'll meet you again in the next lecture.